Not every business launched by college students is going to be a unicorn, but many successful entrepreneurs started something in college. Welcome to the Start Now College Entrepreneurship Series, bringing you the stories and lessons by people who didn't wait to chase their dreams. We want you to be inspired and go beyond. Don't wait and start now. I'm Lindsay Briggs, and I'll be moderating this session of Start Now. This week's guests are Evin Robinson and Jessica Santana from America On Tech. Even as the tech sector is poised for gigantic growth, only 18% of women and 14% of Latinx or Black students combined graduated with a computer and IT degree in 2017. Started in 2014, America On Tech is a nonprofit that aims to prepare the next generation of technology leaders in order to decrease the economic and racial wealth gap in underestimated communities. They offer web developments, after-school programs, internships, and job placements in tech, and access to a network of alumni for mentorship. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Evin Robinson and Jessica Santana of America On Tech to Start Now. Welcome, you two. Glad to have you.
Great to be here.
Awesome. It's so good to have, SU alums in the room together. I've seen you guys soar, even from when I was in college, at the iSchool, and, know that your work has been admired even from afar.
Thank you.
So I just want to get right into it. How is, America On Tech creating pathways through the specific programming that you guys do?
So what America On Tech is a national nonprofit organization really on a mission to decrease the economic and racial wealth gap in underestimated communities. And so we provide tuition-free technology education courses to 16 to 24-year-olds in order to teach them in-demand tech skills, user experience design, web design and development, product management, data science, cybersecurity, etc. And it really is with the goal of, after they complete our program, we place them into internships and jobs within our employer network. So coupled with our technology curriculum, we also have a series of professional development modules that focus on students, skills around writing effective emails, managing up, being able to do internships and really capitalize on that experience. And on top of that, doing a lot of identity affirming sessions on, what code switching is, microaggressions in the workplace, and really preparing them to be young people of color entering the future of work.
That's amazing. That just like gave me a little bit of chills, as because it's so needed, it's so necessary. So how did it all begin? When we see Evin and Jessica now, we see America On Tech, but you guys were once students on the quad, the Syracuse University campus. How did this all begin? Like, where did the interest start? How did you two meet? How did it all begin?
Yeah, so Jessica and I actually became best friends in college. So we met each other just socially on campus, but our friendship really solidified when we did a leadership event together that was sponsored through the university at one of the accounting firms. Fast forward, after the event was over, we were on the train station platform together, started talking again, got on the same train, headed towards Brooklyn. And during that time, while we were on the train, we're just talking about school, aspirations. But one of the commonalities that we had was that we both wanted to do something that would allow us to impact others and give people support. And that was kind of the birth of America On Tech before America On Tech was even thought of. So later into that train ride, about an hour or so in, we realized that we were getting off at the same train stop. And so we had grew up in the same neighborhood, but just because the way the neighborhood is set up in different avenues and schoolings and zones and stuff like that, we never met each other. And so that was the birth of our true friendship, because we were both full of passion, ambition, but we understood each other's shared lived experience of coming from the same place and understanding the journeys and the battles that we both had to overcome to get where we were, in college, and the journeys and battles we would have to fight ahead, and even to today. So
Right.
that was kind of like the formation of our friendship, and that's kind of been the fundamental foundation of how we are connected and what drives us. Jessica and I were just having a chat one time at Starbucks about the lack of diversity in the technology industry. That instead of being discouraged by the lack of diversity in the technology industry, we understood there was a lot of factors into why things like this happen. You will read a lot of reports that would say that there's a lack of diversity because there's a lack of talent. And we knew that there wasn't a lack of talent. We knew that there was a lack of access and opportunity. And so we decided to be part of the solution. And the birth of Brooklyn on Tech happened first, which then evolved into New York On Tech, which then evolved into America On Tech, which is a national organization.
With that said, what advice would you give current and aspiring entrepreneurs who are in college, who may be looking for that business partner or just not knowing what to do while they're in college?
Yeah, for sure. I think I have a lot of advice, and I could probably go on for days about this, but I think in college, one, it's really important to get clear on your why. I think a lot of people want to start businesses, whether nonprofits or venture-backed companies or technology companies, whatever the case may be, without really understanding the fundamentals of why they're doing what they're doing. Entrepreneurship is extremely hard. And so if you get up one day and all else is burning around you, you want to be clear that like the problem that you've committed your life to solving as an entrepreneur is something that you have fallen deeply and miraculously in love with. And so my one piece of advice I have for college students is to get very clear on the problem that you're trying to solve and ask yourself whether or not, this is something that you can actually commit your life to in order to see to fruition, even when the times get hard. I think the second thing about being a college student is that you have access to so many resources on campus.
Yes.
I think the first level of access that you have is your peers. There are peers that are graphic designers, that are coders, that are photographers. You also have access to really amazing professors that have years and tons of experience of maybe doing the thing that you're trying to do. And so I think just the ecosystem around college campuses are very conducive to entrepreneurs because it allows you to incubate your ideas and have access to people, connections, capital that you need to actually bring your idea to life. And I think the last piece of advice that I have for college entrepreneurs or those who are just trying to start off is to really just believe in yourself. I think one thing that happens is that sometimes we stand in our own way and we're waiting for people to give us permission to do the thing that we want to do. And I just think that we deserve and we owe it to ourselves to actually get up every day and bet on ourselves. And seeking external validation for your business is only important when you're trying to do like customer validation. It is not important for you to actually get the thing started.
You just dropped so many gems. Evin, you talked a little bit about it. What are some specific things that you guys did, collectively to leverage, your college relationships, your relationships with your professors and just the Syracuse University community in order to gain more knowledge and just more access to build your business?
Phase one, I would say, I use a lot of my professors. First, I'm in contact with a lot of my professors today. A lot of these relationships have been sounding boards for me to really get an understanding of how to push my level of thinking when it came to thinking about business, but when it came to thinking entrepreneurially, because that's two different types of thinking, right? Scaling it down now, when I think about the peers, when we launched Brooklyn on Tech, a lot of the people that were the initial group of individuals supporting the organization were a lot of our friends from college. And the people that helped us get a lot of our first partners and a lot of the media attention. And we've been very fortunate with the media attention that we have received as an organization came from that first phase from a lot of our contacts from school.
Like I kind of touched on in the beginning, you guys have come so far, been so successful, have transformed so many lives and still doing that. with our young people of color. And is there ever a time where you're just like, you know, you talked about betting on yourself and having the confidence and just believing in yourself. And sometimes that is like the fear that keeps us from just going forward, right? And is there ever a time now that you see how far that you've come that you're like, man, we should have did this, or we should have did this years ago, and we should have acted on that. And even if we thought it was going to fail, we should have done that.
Yeah. You know, I would say that maybe in the beginning stages, we were discounting our worth. You know, when you're going into fundraising meetings and people are like, well, how much do you need? You know, I think it was the first time ever that someone was going to like ever write me a check for an idea that I had. Right. So I think in the beginning stages, maybe something that I feel like I should have done better, maybe in the first 1 or 2 years, was just make bigger asks.
A lot of times people allow fear and uncertainty to hold them back. And I realize the greatest moments in my life have come on the other side of fear and uncertainty. And I think one thing that I always try to tell entrepreneurs is something that an older mentor of mine told me actually when I was in high school, because I've been being entrepreneurial since high school, is, you know, you think of the world as a mountain. And on this mountain, there's many people, you know, going up the mountain the same way. You need to look at the mountain, take a step back and say, okay, everyone is going up this side of the mountain. How do I get to the top quicker? And how do I get there through the route that has less traffic? Because you can sit down with as many professors as you want. You can sit down with as many family members as you want, as many peers as you want, and get advice from them. But at the end of the day, you have to map out your own journey and feel comfortable following your own journey. Because when you look in the mirror, the only person that's looking back is you. And the only person that you have to kind of be accountable, you know, hold accountable at a younger age for your life is you. And, you know, until you get to the point you start having a family of your own and things like that. So just understand that everything that you want is achievable. It just comes with planning and being able to embrace fear.
You touched on, you know, you've been entrepreneurial since high school. And so you've been facing fear for a long time, and you've been courageous. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you did in high school?
Yeah, so the first company I actually started was like a ring jewelry design company. It was based on me wanting to do something to essentially make my mother proud. And I embraced fear as a high school student by traveling into Manhattan after school, going into the wholesale district, which is totally different now. Going into all those buildings in the wholesale district and looking for supplies by myself, figuring out my economics unit, figuring out my own marketing plan, my own communications plan, understanding like my break even points, then thinking about strategies to like reduce cost, thinking about how to attract customers, retain customers. And I actually came into college with that business idea. And I realized again, like that business is no longer around, but that experience and those learning lessons contribute towards the success that I've had as an entrepreneur with NewYork On Tech.
You guys are creating pathways, and you're using your pathway, embracing your pathway to get to success. So I just love it. I love it. So at this point, I believe we are going to have some questions.
I actually have two. So the first one is that you talked about asking permission. So what was a moment that made you realize that you didn't need to ask permission and were able to execute on your vision?
Yeah, that's a really good question. To be honest with you, I realized this when I went to one of my first conferences where I really saw how people who were, and I'm going to particularly say they were like straight white men that would enter rooms with really big confidence and just say, I need $5 million, and they would actually get the 5 million. And here I was with a lot of data and a lot of information, trying to prove my worth when I realized that they were people just stepping into rooms with ideas and getting the same amount of money that I actually needed. And I was way more further along. So I think that for me, that was the moment where I decided to shift my strategy to focus more on like not the logistical aspects of American Tech, but more about the vision that I had and being super relentless um, about pursuing it and doing so unapologetically. I feel like as women, we have been told to be seen and not heard a lot of times. And so the moment that you are loud and you have an idea and you come off as, bossy and aggressive, I realize that those same behaviors are the ones that a lot of, founders who are men, and this is also the founder because he's definitely an ally, but I think it was, I think there's just this preconceived notion that we need to be more silent and timid in our approach, and that's just not the way that I think that we should be operating, especially when entrepreneurship in so many ways requires us to exert a level of energy every single day that you can't ask for permission from people for, because it's just going to be too time consuming and it takes away from your actual larger goal.
And then I have one more question for Evin. What did America on Tech's mountain look like?
Oh, that's great. I think that's a great question. These are good questions. I think, the America on Tech mountain was us realizing first that the space we were coming into. So what we did in the beginning of like teaching people how to code, we didn't put ourselves in a market where we were the only ones doing that at the time. There were a lot of other organizations teaching people how to code and about web development, where our specialty at that time was the cultural relevance that we wrapped around our way of executing such curriculum. When people that are not in the technology industry traditionally think about tech, they either think about coding or they think about some sort of hardware. They don't think about all the other things, right? And our way to get to the mountaintop quicker was to say, okay, what we're going to do is going to focus on various different aspects of technology, because there's not many organizations that are teaching the populations of individuals that we're working with about all of these different avenues and all of these high growth, high innovation avenues up in the technology industry. That allowed us to escalate quicker because people started to see the value that we were bringing to the market. But once you hit the mountaintop, it's like, how do you stay on the mountaintop? And that's where a lot of people mess up as entrepreneurs sometimes, is that they'll get to the mountaintop, you're either burnt out, or once you get to the mountaintop, you get complacent. And as a result of you either being burnt out or complacent, other people the mountaintop grows and other people start to pass you. And so you need to think to yourself as an entrepreneur, okay, how do I get to the mountaintop? How do I stay on the mountaintop? And how do I keep climbing? And that's what we're always doing as an organization. We're always thinking, how do we keep climbing? And so I hope that answers your question and kind of gives you real life scenarios of like what we're doing on our back end. And then it also helps us by plugging in what we have coming up.
Thank you guys both so much. I love the mountaintop and then maintaining, not just arriving, but just always working for more. And having the mindset that you've never arisen, but you're always going for more. And, you're changing people's lives. So I love that. And I just love you guys for sharing in this space on the first ever Start Now speaking series. You guys are not just great entrepreneurs, but great people. And I think that people have really taken that away from this conversation today. So thank you for all the resources. If there's anything else that you guys would like to say, that would be great.
Yeah, words of motivation, just do you. Like, that's the only thing that I can really say is just do you. And live your life as authentically as possible. So many of us are trying to fit into other people's boxes of what they think we are and who we are. And I'm just in a season in my life where if I could go back to when I was 18, 19, 20 years old in college, I would have literally told myself to be the unapologetic brown girl from Brooklyn that I am, as opposed to trying to conform to this idea of what other people had of me and who I should have been.
You'll realize that life is a lot better when you show up as who you are. You don't feel as if you have to change for others. and you're moving as your authentic self, as Jess said. But understand life is a game in some sense. And as an entrepreneur, as a professional, as an individual, you always have to be alert of the different obstacles and mazes that you are going through. And I think once you can understand that mindset also, it allows you to navigate life more easy, and allows you to achieve more wins, and it allows you to basically accomplish a lot of your goals. So that's the only thing I would add to it. And, just live it up, live life, have fun, learn, push your limits, and build meaningful relationships, especially with your family. That's one thing I'll say. Like, as an entrepreneur, you work a lot, but it's important not to forget about the core group of your family, whether that's like your relatives or your friends that you consider family. So that's the only thing I would leave the audience with.
Well, thank you for giving this great entrepreneurial advice. I love that it was a balance between, personal development, believing in yourself, with technical, fundamental, blueprint for students who are going to be great entrepreneurs like yourself and follow your pathway. So thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.